More music. Better mental health. Only on IPL Radio.
All right, and we are back with our zombie special here at IPL Radio with Nate, but we also have a director of one of the biggest horror Facebook groups that you'll find online.
Owner, not director.
Owner, not director? Oh, there we go. Brenton, sorry, you could probably say it better. Tell me a little bit about it, what you do there first.
So 10 years ago, I created Horror Movie Addicts.
Yep.
And it was while I was still running my video store. Actually, 11 years now.
Yeah.
I was running a video store. It was a little independent video store in Melbourne called Popcorn Video. It was in Bond Beach.
Yeah.
And we had, I added 40 of my Facebook friends to this group that I knew were interested in horror movies. And it was, the whole concept was to promote the horror movie section that we had. We had the biggest horror movie section in any video store in Melbourne.
Yep.
Right. Bigger than Blockbusters, bigger than Civic Videos, bigger than Video Easies.
Yeah, right.
And nothing was repeated. Out of 6,500 DVDs I had,
really?
2,500 were horror.
Wow.
And I had this massive 6.5 foot zombie statue standing in there, which who was it created that? I can't remember what his name was that created that, but
was it like a prop?
Well, he lent it to us. We did as a an annual event. We did a zombie shuffle from one suburb through to ours. It took the zombies maybe an hour to shuffle through.
Yeah, right.
We did it as a promotion first.
I imagine you get some amazing footage of just like a horde of zombies ambling through.
Everything. We had great photos and everything. But the last time that we did it as a fundraiser for kids with cancer.
Oh, right.
And was it kids with cancer? Anyway, something to do with cancer. And it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But we when we first did it, this guy, and I honestly can't remember what business he ran, but he supplied a whole heap of zombie statues that he had built.
Right.
And this one, we called him Fred. And he said, look, he said, been trying to sell Fred. He said, would just keep him in your video store as long as you want.
Yep.
So Fred stood in the window and stood next to the horror section. He moved around just about every night.
Yeah, right.
We'd move him and all the rest.
Put him in different spots. Yeah,
a bit like that Elf on the Shelf.
Yeah, yep.
But he became a huge draw card for people to come in and check out our horror section. So anyway, in 2012, I created Horror Movie Addicts with 40 of my friends and family just to
and it blew up.
It's now the biggest horror movie group on Facebook, and it's not just horror movies. We talk about thrillers, we talk about books and comics and anything.
Yeah, right.
There's
anything in the genre across all the different mediums.
Horror or thriller. It has to be horror or thriller.
Yeah.
And I think it was yesterday we hit 500,000 members.
Yeah, right.
Worldwide, yeah. It's huge.
And was there a certain point along the way it was like a particular movie where horror just sort of took off and became popular?
It just grew and grew and grew. And because it is professionally run, and we don't allow crap to go through it.
Yeah.
Every post has to be approved. We have to, us admins, and there's about 15 of us, 16 of us, who painstakingly sit through thousands of posts a day, and we just make sure that there is nothing there that would go against Facebook.
Yeah,
so you
right.
can't have nudity, you can't have true crime stuff.
You can't have true crime.
Not allowed to talk
Why is that?
Because it glorifies the serial killers.
Right.
And Facebook won't allow that sort
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah. Sort of see the point there.
Joining.
Oh yeah, all those rules are in there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just become massive. And we estimate at the rate of growth that we've had over the last month or two, we estimate we'll hit 1 million by the end of the year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're getting about 10,000 a
How
day.
often does the zombie movies or the zombie franchises, as you say, books as well, and that come up? Is that
They come up a fair bit. Pretty much. I mean, we were talking about some of the old Italian zombie movies just yesterday.
Yep.
Someone asked for some gory stuff, and I suggested the Italian zombie films, which they were very cheaply made.
Yep.
But the special effects that they had in there were really good. Yeah. When I say
considering what they're working with at the time.
Well, when I say cheaply made, we're talking 1970s.
Yeah.
Right? But when I say cheaply made, there was one movie, I can't even remember the name of it, but I watched it and there was one moment I laughed. They had this guy fall from a roof.
Yep.
You know, you see him fall, and then you look down and you see what was clearly a dummy hit the ground. And the problem is that when dummies hit grounds, they don't always stay intact. Right. So this dummy's arm flew off.
Yep.
And the next thing, the camera's down the ground filming the actual actor, laying there bleeding, and his arms are attached again.
Right.
Yeah, I would have just reattached the dummy's arm and thrown it over again, or thrown the actor.
Yeah. One of the two's going to work.
Hey, look, snuff films.
Yeah. Well, you do. I do get a little bit finicky about things like that in films and stuff like that,
Yeah, I know. But you're talking about zombies tonight.
Yeah. What is your favourite sort of zombie franchise, or do you go back to the classics?
Two different types of zombies.
Yep.
And this is where you get your slow walkers and your runners.
How do you feel about this? What do you think is a more realistic zombie?
Let's talk about it first. So, okay, your runners are those that are affected by a virus and have just turned.
Yep.
They're not true zombies.
Right.
Right.
Because they haven't died and come back to life.
Right.
They're not reanimated.
They're not raised from the dead.
Yeah.
Whereas your zombie ones, the proper zombie films like George Romero stuff. So you've got Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Survival of the Dead,
Diary of the Dead.
Diary of the Dead.
Yeah.
You got all these other films that go in there, and now they were all shufflers.
Yeah.
Right. The zombies would shuffle, but eventually you're going to get surrounded.
Yeah.
And the zombies are going to get you.
Yeah.
Right. So you can. You can be prepared. You can have your guns and all the rest of it. And
it's more about the numbers and basically
you're going to run out of ammunition before you kill them all.
In order for the runners to exist, they have to exist with the other ones as well.
No.
Okay.
Runners are ones that are like what is it with the T virus?
Resident Evil.
Resident Evil. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Resident Evil, the Crazies, all of that.
Yeah.
Where they're just normal people, and and they've got a virus.
So they've turned more rapidly, and they've still got their full functioning
they've got
body
a virus.
almost.
They're not real zombies. They're not actually zombies because they didn't die, come back.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not zombies.
Yep.
They're just infected. They've got an infection. Right.
Yep.
In 28 days later, it was rage. It was this virus called rage.
Yep.
It was not raising people from the dead. It was not, not like Night of the Living Dead where they were.
Well, there was one point in 28 days later where a guy got infected by a crow. A crow above him dropped a drop of blood into his eye. How do you feel about the sort of species jump and stuff like that with the virus?
Well, I mean, the crow wasn't infected. The crow had been eating infected dead body.
Right. So that doesn't necessarily show a species jump, but
No, it wasn't a species jump.
Shows how easily it is to get infected, though.
Yeah. It wasn't about the crow actually having the infection.
Right. So you're saying they're not technically zombies either. They're just infected with the rage that makes them get that bloodlust.
That's right.
Right.
So now when George Romero created modern day zombies,
Yeah.
Right. And I say modern day because there are other zombie films going back to 1930s, 1940s.
Yeah.
Right. Which were nothing like real zombie films. They were more voodoo stuff.
Yeah.
But George Romero said, okay, they have to be shufflers. They have to be slow because they've raised from the dead, right? And if they try and run, their
Limbs will
ligaments
fall
and
off.
everything are just going to tear,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you can't have a pure running, a proper zombie that runs, But
Yeah.
this is why you can with the virus because they weren't dead.
They've turned.
They've turned into this cannibalistic.
They're not a decayed body.
That's right.
That's
They've turned
deteriorated
into a
a bit.
cannibalistic mutant, if you will, a cannibalistic. I don't know how to put it, but they're just full of.
They still have potential adrenaline and stuff in them like that.
Yeah.
They're not.
What I don't
deteriorated
like is when
body.
you've got, I think it was Survival of the Dead. It was either Survival of the Dead or Diary of the Dead.
Yeah.
And they were running on roofs and all the rest of it. I'm like, no.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
right.
like,
Yeah, right. They don't have that much
you
energy and
can't.
stuff like that. Yep.
Physically, you can't.
And how do you feel about zombies learning to swim and stuff like that? Because I've always thought a good option for the zombie
Well, they
apocalypse
don't
is to
swim,
get to
they
an
walk under
island.
the water.
Walk under the water. Yeah.
There was a movie in the 70s, I think it was, maybe early 80s, called Shockwaves.
Right. Yeah.
Peter Cushing was in it, and it was about something had raised these dead German soldiers or German sailors
Right. Yeah, I remember
from
coming
the bottom
across
of the
that.
ocean,
Yep.
and they made it onto this island to take over these.
Because they had walked along the bottom of the ocean to
They
get
were
there.
walking along the bottom of the ocean to get
Right.
there. They could, they don't need to breathe.
Yeah. And they wouldn't float either.
That's right.
Wouldn't that make them a prime target for like sharks in that day?
No, why?
Because there's like flesh walking through. Their blood, whatever.
It's not warm flesh. It's not bleeding.
It's deteriorated.
They've got no blood left. Well, they've got blood, but they're not bleeding.
Yeah.
There's no blood flow. If you're dead, your heart's not pumping any blood out.
Yeah, but I would have thought that. I mean, unless it's all escaped, that.
Well, you've got to keep in mind too that they've been on the bottom of the ocean for about 30 years.
And sharks don't really hunt the bottom of the ocean either.
No, that's right. But when they're getting closer to the land, I think that would be a pretty cool crossover for a sharks versus zombies type.
Sharks versus zombies. Speaking of that, how do you feel about? We said that in 28 days it didn't actually get infected. The crow just had been eating an infected person. How do you feel about them doing cats and dogs? Especially Resident Evil brought it in a lot with the dogs
Resident
and then
Evil
other
was
creatures.
based on a game,
Yep.
right? So when they were making the movie, all they did was they got the what were they? Were they Dobermans?
Yeah.
They got Dobermans, and they just put stuff over it.
Yeah, made them look like their skin had been turned inside out.
Game.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, why couldn't the
Species jump.
why couldn't they be infected by the virus? They'd be infected by the T virus because it escaped and they were in there at the time.
Yeah, I think especially with it being the pathogen and stuff like that. There's other things like the original sort of voodoo zombies. I don't see that happening with animals and stuff like that, obviously.
Well, no one makes movies about voodoo anymore.
Yeah, right.
Because we all know that it's the biggest crock.
Yeah.
It was the whole voodoo idea. The reason that it worked, if you will, was because it was superstition and people believed it.
Yep.
Right. And they were a very simple race where it was happening. And, this witch doctor or whatever would say, he'd point his bone, he'd be chanting and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, people would go, oh my God, and it was just paranoia.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah. No, that's all right. And what do you feel is the best sort of survival options after all the zombie movies that you've watched? If you were to actually live in a zombie apocalypse, would you do like a lone wolf thing? Would you look for a small group of people, or would you be like a large community sort of guy?
Screw that. The more people you've got, the less chance of survival you've got.
Because you're just attracting zombies.
Yeah. No, you just the best way to survive is to hole up somewhere. Make sure you've got regular food supply. So you've got here a can of country ladle bone broth spiced pumpkin.
Yep.
Right.
Because when the zombie apocalypse breaks out, you can have all the money in the world. Doesn't mean anything. That becomes currency.
As long as you can get food.
And it doubles, as you were saying, you can whack them on the head with it.
And if you and if you've got if there is a water supply, considering that all power will shut down, you won't have electricity anymore because there'll be no one to run the electricity.
Yeah, of course.
Although you've got solar powered batteries and all the rest of it, and you can
they still need some maintenance on them.
But as long as you can get water, and if you've got seeds, I mean, you've seen my son's garden in that kitchen.
Yep.
He's grown.
It's doable.
Yeah, he's grown a tomato plant that's about 8 foot tall.
Yeah.
Right? It's got 7 tomatoes growing.
I think that's exactly what they did in The Walking Dead. When Rick sort of stopped just sort of trying to hunt and survive and stuff like that, he had a sort of mentor that showed him how to actually plant tomato seeds.
Well, you can grow stuff. That tomato plant has not had any bees or anything around it, yet it's got 7 tomatoes growing on it.
Yeah, right. Certain plants will just produce without that sort of external pollination
there's a way of
influence.
There's a way of doing it. When it starts to blossom, you shake the blossom and the pollen will fall down to the stamen.
Yeah.
And that's how you can grow fruit.
Yeah, right.
So, if you plant enough seedlings and you.
But if you're talking about planting food, then you're not sort of doing the lone wolf thing, travelling around. You've got to be set in one place for a certain amount of time to.
Well, that's right.
Be able to bear the fruit.
You stay in a fortress.
Right. Yeah.
You make sure that you've got enough defence to be able to.
And what about when people come knocking on your fortress and ask for help?
You ever see Dawn of the Dead?
Yep.
Right, now Dawn of the Dead was the one where they were in the
shopping centre?
In the shopping centre?
Yeah.
Did you see what happened when outsiders tried to get in?
Yeah.
Yeah, the zombies got in.
Yeah, right. So you're pretty staunch with like...
Oh, yeah, no one gets into my fortress, man.
See? That's sometimes the stuff that frustrates the crap out of me watching zombie movies. Is like you're sitting there going, no, don't let them in. And then they let them in and they let the zombies in and they get dead. Or you sit there going, shoot them now. Why are you hesitating? Nah, just shoot them. Don't let them turn.
Don't let them in if you have a way of keeping... anything out, zombies or otherwise, do so.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm
ruthless, but I like it.
I just know that as soon as a zombie apocalypse does happen, I'm down the cemetery, man. I'm down the cemetery with a hammer. Yeah, I'm playing the biggest game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah, right. Just get them as soon as they come up. Exactly. Don't give them a chance to form a horde.
I just go down to iPlay down the road here, and I practice all the time. And I'm prepared, man. I'm prepared for that.
Get them as soon as they pop up. And how do you feel about zombies gaining intelligence, as they did sort of through George Romero's movies? They sort of gained intelligence.
Did they?
They had Buddy. I think it was in the
okay.
one.
No, he had been worked on by the doctor in that film. That was David.
Yeah, right.
He had actually been
That's the one.
He'd been trained and worked on, and because the doctor thought, well, we should be able to. He's got some memory, so it wasn't intelligence.
Yeah,
it was memory training. So
right.
He because he had been a soldier or something, and the doctor noticed that he had saluted.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, as soon as he saw some military uniform, he saluted, and he was like, well, hang on a second.
He's got some memory of his previous life.
He put a Walkman. There was a cassette Walkman.
Yeah.
Right, and he got
a book or something.
The book. He picked up the book, and he was looking at the book, but it was never full on intelligence.
Yeah.
And it backfired in the end because that zombie turned around and killed a lot of people.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And there was
Only
later
because
ones.
only because they killed the doctor.
I think it was Night of the Dead. It was the one that had Simon Baker in it, the Aussie actor Simon Baker. Pretty sure it's one of the George Romero films.
Well, you got to remember, Night of the Living Dead has been remade many times.
Yeah.
And there's many different versions of the original Night of the Living Dead because
right.
George Romero screwed up.
Right.
George Romero made that film and he didn't copyright it. And because he didn't copyright it, you can now take that film. You can go and remake that movie without any permissions.
Wow.
Yeah. And no one owns the
Does that mean
copyrights
you
'cause
could air the movie without?
You can do whatever you like with the film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And you can make money off it.
Yeah.
You know, you can re-edit it. You can add stuff to it. There's been some really good re-editings of it, you know, where they've added extra footage and all the rest of it, to try and explain the what had happened. Apparently, the George Romero story that happened because the Earth went through the tail of a comet.
Oh,
and there was
really?
something in the comet that brought them back to life.
Right. That's where it originally started.
That's where they originally started. Yeah, yeah. That's where Night of the Living Dead started.
Unreal.
But yeah,
I heard he was working with the guy that went on to make the Evil Dead series.
Sam Raimi.
Yeah, before that.
I don't know.
I think he was working with him before that. And how do you feel about the Evil Dead series? Do you classify that as zombie genre?
No.
Because they're demons, aren't they?
That's demonic
the
possession.
Deadites.
That's demonic possession.
Yeah, Ash versus the Evil Dead and stuff like that. Yeah.
There's not zombies because, again, they haven't died.
Yeah.
They've become possessed.
Yeah,
and
right.
they're flying around and all sorts
What's
of
your
shit.
take on Pet Sematary and that's not specifically classified as zombies?
Pet Sematary is a zombie type film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're literally buried and come back out of the grave.
Killed,
So
they go and bury them
Yeah.
in the pet cemetery in the area you're not supposed to bury stuff because it'll come back. And yeah, so yes, that's a zombie film. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, that's almost like a witchcraft origin or something, or more
that
mythical.
was Indian
burial ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It was a sacred Indian ground. It might not have been a burial ground, I don't know, but it was a sacred Indian ground.
Yeah.
And because it was sacred and they'd crossed over the threshold and they'd buried the cat, and then they'd buried Cage.
Yeah.
Well, in the original, in the book, it was Cage. In the remake, actually, no, I won't say in the remake, just in case listeners haven't watched it.
Right.
But it's
Well, we won't. Well, we've already given a spoiler warning, but either way,
no, I won't mention it
That's
because it changes the story slightly.
Have you seen both? Obviously, you've seen it as well.
I've seen the first couple of Pet Cemeteries.
The remake has John Lithgow and a few other people as well.
Right.
What's your favourite version? Do you like the more modern take? Do you prefer?
I prefer the original.
Yeah.
There was no need to remake it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
but
already a good
I don't
movie.
like remakes.
Yeah. Right. And what about is it Mary Shelley's? Is that right? Frankenstein.
Frankenstein was something completely different because Frankenstein's monster was an experiment.
Yeah.
Frankenstein, who was the doctor, the scientist.
Yeah. That's where he gets his name.
He was. He started off. He was robbing graves for body parts, and then I think he kills someone to. I could be wrong about the killing of someone, but depends on
To get the heart or the brain or something like that.
Well, no, not to get the brain because Igor, his faithful assistant, gets a brain that is, he's been sent to get a particular brain, and is in the middle of a storm. Now, in the book and in the movie that came out in the 30s or 40s with Boris Karloff,
Right.
Igor was carrying the brain and got startled by his own reflection in the mirror because he was deformed and all the rest to
Right,
that.
yeah.
And there was a flash of lightning, and he drops the brain and destroys it. And that's actually used again in Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein.
Right, yeah.
Igor, as Marty Feldman called himself, because the guy that was Gene Wilder, who was playing Frankenstein, refused to call himself Frankenstein. He's known as Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
Right? He said, "Oh, do you call it Frederick?" He said, "No, it's Frederick." Well, why isn't it Frederick Frankenstein? It's not. It's Frederick Frankenstein. You know.
Yeah, right.
And he says, now you're Igor. He says, no, it's Igor.
Igor.
It was a whole thing because Gene Wilder's character believed that his uncle or great grandfather, whoever he was a kook, as he called him, and that it couldn't work. You wouldn't be, but it's reanimated.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a patchwork human that's been reanimated
by electricity.
Yeah.
Right.
The lightning strike.
It's like if you have a dead body and you zap enough electricity into it, that body's going to twitch.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, it's been done in science experiments in schools with frogs. They
right.
Destroy the brain,
make their muscles twitch and stuff like that.
They
just
kill
with
the
electrical
frog and
signals
then they zap it with
pulses
with some electricity, and the frog will jump.
Start kicking.
The frog will jump.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah.
And do you get into big debates on stuff like that with other people in these Facebook groups that have different opinions?
Man, I'm too busy to get to
do you see
stuff.
some?
I just run the group.
Do you see some debates started?
We see debates over which movies are better.
Right.
Usually it's a lot of trolls, but you know.
Right.
That's where you bring in your admins and things like that.
That's where we get the admin banhammers happening.
Right.
Yeah.
And so do you get people arguing over things like we've been talking about, like intelligence in zombies and sort of survival plans and stuff like that?
Well, no, we get people saying, "Oh, that movie was crap."
Right. Yeah. Okay.
You know, and you know, they're trying to egg people to fight with them in the group, and we just go, you know what?
That's not what it's about. No. Yeah.
We don't. I mean, we get people saying why they liked films or why they didn't like films, which is fine.
Yeah.
You get people who will sit there and and talk about the different films and their favourite scenes and everything. But you don't really, it'd be good if they did have a healthy debate, but usually get people who just turn around and say, "Look, you don't agree with me. You must be a complete, absolute."
Yeah, that's not helpful. It's all good to have a debate and for people to bring their different opinions and stuff like that. But when it gets a little bit heated, I suppose that's when you got to step in and let people know that that's not what it's all about.
Well, we got to keep the group safe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be a safe place for people to be able to go in there and check stuff out. We might go to a song, but thanks for stopping by and having a chat with us and stuff and enlightening us a little bit more. I've been learning so much. It's such a sort of deep genre, and I thought maybe just because I was sort of up to date with The Walking Dead and I enjoyed a zombie movie that I knew a fair bit about it, but I've done a lot of research over the last couple of weeks getting ready.
Of course, there's Return of the Living Dead there's actually 5 in that series.
Yeah, right.
But Return of the Living Dead and Return of the Living Dead 2 are the ones that hit the cinemas here in Australia. I don't know if the others hit the cinemas over in America, but we didn't even get number 4 or 5 on video here. We had, and I only found out there was 4 and 5. I found that out a few years back when I was on eBay looking up Return of the Living Dead, and all of a sudden I was seeing number 4, number 5. This is strange. Number 3 was very serious. Number 1 and 2 were comedies.
Yeah,
and they even included the same cast in the first 2, which was great.
Yeah,
it was like because in the second one they said, "I feel like I've been here before."
Oh, really?
And it was a nod to the first one.
Of course.
Two main actors from the first film, but they were a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and they were zombies coming from the grave, and that's where you got the you've got to destroy the brain theory, and also it wasn't that you had to destroy the brain. That's where you got the zombies need the brains.
Right, go where there are brains.
It was only Return of the Living Dead films where the zombies are actually
specifically wanted brains.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So all the other franchises like Walking Evil, Resident Dead, stuff like that, they're not
just eat the flesh.
Just eat the flesh.
They just eat the flesh.
Right. So it's Return of the Living Dead that made it all about the actual brains.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
See, again, still learning. Oh,
Do you guys have any song requests?
What have you got loaded up?
Well, if we search zombie, we have a few, but I'm pretty sure we've gotten through most of them. We can go through the tracks if you like.
There were 21 that I loaded up earlier.
Some of those were just sound effects and stuff like that. Chuck that Dragula on. It is a Rob Zombie song, so it sort of fits the genre.
It's called Dragula.
Dragula.
It is a bit of a worry considering that. Do you know what the movie Dragula is about?
No, what's Dragula about?
It's about a drag queen vampire.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's definitely not what this song's about.
It'll bite a guy and turn the guy into a drag queen.
Oh, right.
Sounds like an amazing movie to watch.
You can watch it, man. I have no interest.
Almost sounds like the vampire version of the Rocky Horror Picture Show or something.
Well, no, because Rocky Horror wasn't drag queens.
They were transvestites.
Yeah.
Transylvania.
Drag queens are people who dress up and do shows.
Oh, right. Yeah. Got ya.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, we'll go to that for now. Thanks heaps for stopping by for a bit of a chat and sharing some knowledge with us about the zombie franchise and culture.
Go and join the look for Horror Movie Addicts. Now it is the biggest horror movie group on Facebook. It's 500,000 members plus.
Yep.
I think we added a couple more thousand today.
Yeah.
But we're just growing so fast that, like I said, by the end of the year we'll be at 1 million easy.
And I imagine if anybody's got any questions about any horror genre, then that would be a great place to have them answered
definitely.
and join a good community.
We get a lot of people in the group who say, look, there's a movie, I seem to remember this. There's not a lot to go on. I can't remember the title of it. I can't even remember who was in it or what year it was made. But
somebody
this is
there
all
will
I
know.
remember. In this particular scene, this happened. And most of us will go, oh, yeah, it's that film.
Yeah, right.
Because we know exactly what film they're talking about.
Yeah, somebody there will be able to figure it out. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
We do get the trolls who go, I remember this film where this young girl was laying on the bed and throwing, his head was spinning around and throwing up green stuff. And I actually had someone try and post that one, I'm like, you're an idiot. You know exactly what movie that is. So I just deleted their post because it was just troll bait.
Yeah, right. Just trying to kick off an argument or something like that.
The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
Even if you haven't seen The Exorcist, you know that scene.
You know that's
that
The Exorcist.
Stuff,
Yeah.
But usually we, about 99% of the time, it's they're legit
genuine questions and stuff
need,
like that. People just wanting to know stuff.
I mean, I'd actually done the same thing at one stage. I said, look, there's this film that has been bugging me. I remember this, but I can't remember the title. I've been looking for this particular film. I can't find it because you can't just put it into a search engine. You can't just type in what you remember from a film and have it come up.
Yeah.
You might be lucky, but usually not.
It's the place to go to answer the questions Google
go
can't.
to Horror Movie Addicts, but look, be very careful. There are a couple of copycat groups out there that have tried
to
call themselves Horror Movie Addicts, or they've called themselves Horror Movie Addicts, but they might only have 2,000 or 3,000 members.
Right.
Because it's not run the same
Probably.
way. We run it very well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I might have to check that out myself. But yeah, thanks heaps for coming in. Let's go to a song, Nate, and we will come back soon and wrap up the night with a couple of conclusions and maybe some results from the polls that we done.
That's right. That sounds really good. I've got a few and one on Twitter that's still up today.
Oh, beautiful. All right, we'll come back with that soon. But for now, a little bit of Rob Zombie.